Welcome to Smart Africa TV. Our guest today is Professor Shem Oyoo Wandiga, Kenya's top university administrator and Africa's leading scientist with global recognition. Professor Wandiga recently retired after 50 years of distinguished career. I will be talking to him about his career, family, community, and his current life in retirement. I'm your host, Elvis Mboya, in Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Elvis.
You officially retired from active teaching and administration at the university level last year. This is after almost 5 decades of exemplary service, rising through the ranks from assistant lecturer at the Case Western Reserve University in 1969 to a full professor of chemistry at the University of Nairobi, and eventually chancellor at the Egerton University, among other higher positions. Briefly take us through this journey of Africa's success story.
I hold a PhD from the Case Western Reserve University in USA. I am a professor of chemistry at my home department at the University of Nairobi, where I served for 48 years. However, from 2011 to 2020, I was seconded to the Institute for Climate Change and Adaptation in the same university, and as an acting director of the institute. My specialization is in organic chemistry and environmental science, where I have done much research in. I have rendered a much excellent and selfless contribution and service to the Institute for Climate Change and Adaptation, of which I am the founding father and was its director from its official inception. During the University of Nairobi's at 50 celebration that was held on 10th December 2020 and deemed celebrating 50 years of academic excellence, I was recognized and honored as an outstanding achiever for my distinguished leadership in policy on university government and founder of the Institute for Climate Change and Adaptation. I was ranked Outstanding Achiever #1 in the College of Biological and Physical Sciences amongst my other peers, Professor Eric Odada #2, Professor Richard Mibei #3, and the late Professor John Kokwaro #4, and the late Professor Thomas Odhiambo #5. This was no mean achievement amongst this group of stellar academicians. Let us move on to sample just the tip of the iceberg of my wider contribution to the country, the region, and the global village at large. I was chairman of the Department of Chemistry, principal of the College of Biological and Physical Sciences, deputy vice chancellor, administration and finance 1987 to 1994 of the University of Nairobi, and finally acting director, Institute for Climate Change Adaptation 2011 to 2020. I was subsequently appointed as the coordinator of the University Investment Program, POLI 1991. This was under a $60 million World Bank credit to the Kenya government, which I successfully helped negotiate and manage. I have chaired several national committees on university education and have been a consultant on World Bank, UNESCO, and UNEP projects undertaken in Kenya and Eastern Africa. I was elected as Kenya's representative to to the Executive Board of UNESCO and served from 1995 to 1999, where I was elected the chairman of the program committee. I was president of the External Relations and Program Commission of the Board of the International Council for Science, ICSU, from 1997 to 1999, and a member of its General Committee and the Advisory Committee on Environment from 1999 to 2002. If you look at my record on international recognition, I am a fellow of the Kenya National Academy of Sciences since 1986, including being its chair from 1992 to 2002. I am a fellow of the World Innovations Foundation since 2002, IUPAC since 2004. IUPAC stands for International Union for Pure and Applied Chemistry since 2002, the African Academy of Sciences since 2006, and the Royal Society of Chemistry since 2010. I'm also a member of the American Chemical Society since 2010, and a member of the UNESCO Board for the International Basic Sciences Program from 2004 to 2015. Since 1999 to 2017, I was a member of the International Jury, UNESCO Kallenga Prize for the Popularization of Science, alongside others such as member of, in 2004, of the jury for the L'Oreal UNESCO Award for Women in Condensed Matter Science, Physics and Chemistry. I have been a member of the Pan-Africa Chemistry Network and served as the University of Nairobi coordinator from 2010 to 2020. I have also provided advisory services in many areas, including as member of the advisory board for the IDRC DFID project titled Climate Change Adaptation Support Program for Action Research and Capacity Development in Africa from 2006 to 2008, where I served as chair and as chair of the Government of Kenya Task Force on the Development of National Strategy for University Education from 2006 to 2008. Let's now move on to academic research. And I would like to say by outlining that my research interests are wide and include studying sources and sinks of biogenic gases, persistent organochlorine pesticides in the tropics, trace metals concentrations in various environmental media, complexes of group 5B metals with sulfur and oxygen bonding ligands, and climate change and health. In 2004, I was awarded a certificate by the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, Kenya, for my outstanding work on hazardous and toxic chemicals and pesticides. In 2015, I was awarded the UNESCO Medal Prize, UNESCO Laureate, for the promotion and development of nanoscience and nanotechnology. I was the principal investigator in the project called Capacity Building to evaluate and adapt to climate change-induced vulnerability to malaria and cholera in the Lake Victoria region under the JEF-funded, UNEP-executed, and START and twice implemented project, Assessment of Impacts and Adaptation to Climate Change. To my knowledge, this was the first large climate change adaptation project by any academic institution in Kenya that was launched in the late 1990s. I followed this as coordinator of another project that came hot on the heels of the first one, which was titled increasing community resilience to drought in Makueni district. This project, which was funded by the JEF and implemented under the coordination of UNEP and ACTS, aimed to integrate vulnerability and adaptation to climate change into sustainable development policy planning and implementation in Eastern and Southern Africa. The results were essential to informing drought and disaster management policies in Kenya and to building the capacities of communities in drylands to buffer the effects of drought on agro-based livelihoods. This project received international attention and was featured at one time by Al Jazeera News Network. I'm also a member of the team in the project Equatorial Africa Deposition Network, funded by JEF and administered by UNEP, and which aims to establish a working dialogue between Equatorial African governments and focuses on transboundary transport of major macronutrients in view of creating regional cooperation to advocate for changes in national and regional rural development programs. I am the author of over 144 papers, 134 conference presentations, 26 books and chapters in books, 11 public lectures at international conferences, 10 government reports, and 13 consultancy reports. There's more we can go on, but here I have restricted this to the domain of climate change and adaptation. If I were to also enumerate my achievement in chemistry, it would also be as long or longer.
Excellent resume, Professor. Kindly just be in the middle of the, and try to look at the camera a little bit. Yeah, just to be in the middle. Yeah, thank you so much. This side. Thank you very much. Now, having experienced the education system in a first world country like the US, both as a student and a lecturer, what is it that we are not doing right with our own Africa system that, if identified and applied, can turn around the fortunes of our institutions to enable them to function better and deliver better results which are at par with the best in the world?
I think the question could be turned around to say, what are we doing? Not what are we doing wrong, but what we can do to improve what we are doing in the continent. We have produced distinguished scholars who have competed and excelled in their fields in the West and at home. However, we lack the following inputs in competitive academic world. One, we lack quality policy that can govern sciences. By here I mean social, humanities, medical, and basic sciences, as well as agricultural sciences. This would also include policy on technology and innovation. Two, we invest very little in resources to improve science. Let me give an example. When I finished my PhD in 1972, I was using an instrument called nuclear magnetic resonance. And at that time, I was using what we call 100 megahertz instrument, NMR. When I came to Kenya, there was none. After struggling, I got one which was at 60 megahertz. The magnification of 60 megahertz is just about 1.6 magnification. The technology has grown to the point that today we are talking of NMR of 800 megahertz. And you can see the high magnification power that has been built. We have none in the country. An investment in such instruments and other equivalent instruments is critical for science and technology. Three, we do not motivate our scholars to live above poverty line. And this is the bane of the African scientists. They are scrambling to survive because the salary makes them earn a living to cure the chronic disease, not to think above the chronic disease. The salary is miserable, and we cannot improve science and technology, any science, if you want those people to struggle for their daily living. Lastly, we have to create a balance between basic and fundamental research and applied and innovative research. We inherited a system under the British system which emphasizes publish or perish. So what we do is to publish our results, but we don't study on how to apply what we have studied. And generation of innovation, generation of technology require that we emphasize both sides, both the basic fundamental research and the applied technological and innovative aspects of our research. I believe that if we improve the above areas, then we shall see Africa rise and compete favorably in the world.
Thank you for that insight. One of the hallmarks in your career path must have been when you were the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration and Finance at the University of Nairobi, when the late President Daniel Arap Moi administration introduced the Higher Education Loan Board HELP, which was met with implementation glitches and mass student strike, making it one of the most challenging era for the university administration across the country. How did you manage to stay on the top of the game?
Well, the Kenya government invited the World Bank when things were running badly, because at that time the West did not want to give money to Kenya because of political matters and other matters related to corruption. But nevertheless, the World Bank came in order to help Kenyan universities restructure itself. And through the process of restructuring, they convened members of the university community, and at the first meeting agreed that the university will produce a paper which they will consider when they return. On their second mission, when they came, I happened to be a Deputy Vice Chancellor and joined that meeting. And the bank staff found no paper. They were very agitated, very much agitated, and in desperation turned to me as a Deputy Vice Chancellor to lead the process. This process I led with other colleagues and other appointed members of other universities, and we produced working documents which produced first the restructuring of the loan system. There was no student loan system to talk about. There was a loan officers in the ministry, but there was no loan system. And we recommended the creation of Higher Education Loans Board, which was also accepted by the government. After that, the things started rolling, And I was invited by the press from my World Bank office to come to the Vice Chancellor of the university's office. And when I went there, I was asked whether the students will pay fees. Certainly, I had read the conditionalities that the finance minister had signed, and I said, yes, the students will pay fees. It has been agreed because it is in a written document. And that was magnified and leaked to the press. And there was a lot of hullabaloo that arose from that. I was even subjected to ridicule. And for the first time, I was cartooned in the press, which was a big honor. But let us look back. Who belts the cat? At this time, I belled the cat inadvertently. But the payment of student fees rescued the universities from a deep financial hole, and they were able to do a lot of wonderful things. They were able to complete buildings that they had started with government promise to give them money and could not provide money to complete those buildings. Those buildings were completed. They started a parallel program, and the parallel program was a source of money to the universities. And this source did not dry up until the community, the citizens started crying about high level of cheating at examinations. During Dr. Matiangi's reign at the Ministry of Education as Cabinet Secretary, he plugged the cheating. And today, I think we are proud that the students who are being awarded grades are being awarded those grades on merit and not on cheating. That has been eliminated. But the consequence of that is that the universities lost a sacred cow, the students whom they were getting funds from. And today we have a deep financial crisis in all our public universities. And now we are looking for another way out. And the government has invited the International Monetary Fund to help restructure the universities in order to keep the universities running and produce quality students and quality research. I'm sure at the end of this process, there will be other structural adjustments and a review of the students' fee payment will be undertaken. So I don't look at this period in regret. I think it was a bigger achievement to the nation and a bigger stride, and the payment of fees has become a normal thing for all of us.
Thank you for taking us through that journey. Now, in July 2010, the press splashed a story to insinuate that your tribulations in the field of chemistry and chemical sciences, for your tribulations in the field of chemistry and chemical sciences, you are to be honored with the prefix Sir to your name, and that at a date to be announced, you are to travel to the Buckingham Palace to receive the knighthood from Her Majesty the Queen, an issue that forced the Royal Academy of Chemistry to set the record straight. How was the experience with your moment of fame? Sort of.
It was both in exhilarating and depressing. It was not. It was not an error.
Yes.
I'm a member, as I've said, of the Royal Chemical Society of UK. And they presented me with a card, an annual card, on which they wrote Sir Professor Shem Oyoo Wandiga. In my excitement, without following the protocol, I announced it to the press. And of course, there was a recoil because all the protocol measures had not been taken to call me a sir. So I would like to learn from it and not say much more about it than what I've said.
That is fair enough. Now, the current Kenyan administration has recognized your talent in many ways too. For instance, when President Uhuru Kenyatta appointed you a chancellor of Egerton University, the topmost administrative rank at the university level. Just before that, you also appointed chairman of Moi University, University Council, among other positions that you've held. How was your experience at the helm, and how would you describe your relationship with the past and current administration?
I'm very grateful to the Kenya government for giving me the honor to serve in various universities. First, I was appointed chairman of the Bondo University College Council. We were the founding members which nurtured the Bondo University College Council to become the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology. I served there for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, I was appointed as the chairman of the Moi University Council. I did work well with the council, and we initiated several changes. And to the present, and to the best of my recollection, they have recognized my 8 months stint as their chairman by naming a building after me.
Great.
After 8 months, I was appointed by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta to be the Chancellor of Egerton University. There we worked very well with various councils and two councils and administration, and we initiated changes, and I left them at a stage which I hope and wished that they would have continued. I hope they will continue, because before my end, we inaugurated the building of the Egerton University Library, and several such activities have made me proud, and I hope my colleagues with whom I've worked with are still remembering my tenure with nostalgia as I do. My relations with the government is cordial. I have no problem with the present government, and I'm still willing to help in any way possible as long as God gives me strength to do so.
Thank you. Now let's talk about climate change. Just before you retired, you are the acting director at the Institute of Climate Change and Adaptation at the University of Nairobi. And in March 2021, you held an online press conference to talk about how climate change has affected Africa. What are your findings and recommendations?
The major findings were the basis of my lecture. First, I dwelt with what causes climate change in the first lecture. And the second lecture dealt with how climate change has affected and impacted the continent. And the third change I dealt with what I call the hope for Africa, which is how are we mitigating and adapting to climate change. Those three topics form the basis of the message I was going to deliver, which is basically that the United Nations has recognized climate change as the next biggest threat. It could be even worse than the COVID-19, which we have been experiencing. Secondly, all the governments, including the African governments, have accepted through the United Nations Convention for Climate Change that they will participate in mitigating and adapting to climate change. So I was trying to create awareness to the press on the issues that are critical so that they can write on climate change objectively and also see what is happening. We are not doing much in the continent in terms of mitigation because we don't have resources, we don't have technologies. And the technology we had hoped would come from the developed countries to assist us in mitigating climate change. But as you know, technology, if you are an inventor, you protect it through intellectual property right. And no government can give it away. And we have seen the recent debate on vaccines to illustrate what I'm talking about. The government cannot give it away because it is protected. So what was talked about at the 92 Stockholm Convention on Environment was a wishful thinking. The second one is that we were thinking that since we have been devastated by climate change, the people who have caused climate change would set aside money to pay for loss that we have incurred. The negotiation on loss repayment is not completed, and hence we cannot keep our hope that that money will come. I was hopeful, and I'm still hopeful, that when a snake comes into your house, you have to use what you have to kill it or get it out. This is a snake which has come to Africa, and we have to use what we have. And our hope is in adaptation. Adaptation is what each one of us does to fight the onslaught of climate change on us. And these are the issues and the items that I highlighted in my talk. And I hope that and encourage many of you to read it, listen to it, and hear my views.
Thank you so much for that pertinent, for addressing that pertinent issue. Now, please allow me to take you back and correct me if I'm wrong. About 50 years ago, just before you went to the United States for your further studies, you were a school teacher at Kamagambo School in the former South Nyanza district, now Migori County in Kenya. Describe your journey.
I was not, Elvis, as a teacher at Kamagambo School. I was a student at Kamagambo School.
Oh,
I went there to do my grade 8 and grade 9 secondary education. During my tenure over there, we had differences of opinion with the institution on the policy of further studies. We were influenced by some of the visitors that they brought to give us lectures. And there were doctors in this, doctors in that, and doctors in this. And we said, why can't we also have doctors in the Seventh Day schools? Why don't we produce doctors? And the disagreement was so intense that 5 of us were expelled. I then took the opportunity to apply for further education, and I wrote to many schools, and one of them, Pine Forge Institute in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, a Seventh-day Adventist school, accepted me. And I went there and completed my grade 10 and grade 11. Grade 10 and 11. I done 8 and 9, 10 and 11 completed the secondary schools. And when I completed the secondary school, I was penniless because I had collected $720, which I took with me to the United States. And I stretched those $720 to pay my fees and feeding for 2 years and through student work program. So I appealed after getting admission to Howard University. I appealed to the late President John Fitzgerald Kennedy for assistance. And through his office, he persuaded the Seventh-day Adventist headquarters to assist me, which paid my first year in college fees. During that first year, I applied to the Kenya government for a scholarship, and luckily I got the scholarship and was able to finish my bachelor's degree in chemistry at Howard University in 1967. I then applied to University of Maryland, which admitted me, and they gave me teaching assistantship, and I transferred there and finished my master's in chemistry at University of Maryland, College Park. I then transferred to the Case Western Reserve University for my PhD, and again they gave me teaching assistantship, and I completed my PhD in 1972, and thereafter I came back in September of that year to join the University of Nairobi, which had accepted me as a lecturer in chemistry. So that is the journey that I went through.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us. Now let's talk about family and community. Your father, the late Pastor Oyoo Wandiga, rest in peace, a respectable Luo elder, was one of the pioneer leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church that was first introduced by the missionaries at Gendia Kindube in Omabay County, near your village home, that is near Lake Simbi. What role has the church and family played in your immensely successful career?
Yeah, before I go to answer that one, let me just add one thing on the last part. That my going to the US helped me become a scientist. I had never been taught chemistry, and I was at 22, 23 when I transferred to the US. But I met a Jamaican chemistry teacher which taught me the ABC of chemistry, and I fell in love with the subject. So that is one benefit that a teacher can give to a student, that you can open the mind. Now, let me come back to your last question. I'm a Christian, and Christianity was taught to me by my mother and my father. I can give an example of a recent incident where some of these telephone cheats, fraudsters, called me to tell me that he had sent me something like 7,000 shillings in my account wrongly. Will I return it to him? And he was impatient and crying that I should return it to him. And that brought out my Christianity in me. I could not take somebody's money. I cannot steal. I have integrity to do. And I said, yes, I will return your money. But before I know it, he had transferred me to another fraudster who was using the wool of Safaricom line and telling me that he was trying to help me transfer the money. When I checked later, I found I had not received any money. But through the process of 1 hour discussion with this fraudster, I lost 21,000 shillings. And as I blame my naivety to my Christian bringing, because it is the faith that, as I said, I cannot steal, I cannot cheat, and I cannot take something which is not there. So Christianity is still in me, and it is my guiding principle of life.
What an unfortunate incident there. Sorry about that experience. Going forward, in 2019, International Journal of Fisheries and Aquatic Studies published a unique study conducted by researchers from Kisii University and the Technical University of Kenya that deduced that even though there are currently no fish in Lake Simbi, it is known to have densely phytoplankton and zooplankton community, which makes it a potential for fish development. As a professor of chemistry, and going by this finding, is it scientifically possible to rehabilitate the lake and introduce fish, as previously done to some alkaline lakes in Kenya's Rift Valley region?
Elvis, this is a very interesting question, but I must first of all declare my ignorance in fish biology and lake restoration. This is not my area of expertise, and I would be lying if I told you that I'm an expert in that area.
Fair enough.
When it comes to water quality, yes, I'm an expert in water quality. And what I know is that the water quality in Lake Simbi, unlike Lake Magadi and Lake Chala, where fish is found, is different. It's different. Lake Simbi's water quality is different from that of Lake Magadi and Lake Chala. In Lake Magadi, we have hot springs and we have tilapia in Lake Magadi, which are able to survive under high temperatures. And that is unique by itself. In Lake Chala is a crater lake, and we have, again, tilapia, which are surviving, but they are deep feeders, deep lake feeders, because the lake is deep, and therefore they go deep to the lake to feed themselves. These two lakes are very different, and their characteristics are different, and hence their water quality is also different. Yes, Lake Simbi is endowed with high algae growth. Yes, a lot of algae. And the benefit that we are getting from this algae is that the flamingos are now flocking to Lake Simbi, and with the flamingos, we hope if they continue to feed in Lake Simbi, we will attract some of the tourists who go to Lake Naivasha, Lake Nakuru, to Lake Simbi. And when they come there, we'll have the opportunity of building tourist resort centers and hotels. And if we take advantage of that tourist attraction, which is brought by nature, we can also add by improving the Lake Victoria shores for other lake activities, so recreational activities. So we have the combination of those who coming to Lake Simbi being able to also have Lake Victoria recreational facilities and also include fishing in Lake Victoria, though the fish quantity has dwindled. So we can begin to look at Lake Simbi as a natural attraction for us, a natural tourist attraction for us, which we can utilize and build resort areas around the lake in order to encourage the visitors to have places of sleep and places of recreation. That in itself will be a contribution. Secondly, Lake Simbi has a fabled history of how it was formed. The fable of the Anyango Nyarwasi coming to the lake, to the village before the rain starts, and the rain he meets men drinking busa or the local beer, and they chase away. Now, that is a fable story, like other fables, that if we begin to teach our youth to tell that story well to the people and to make it attractive, we will be enriching the cultural heritage of our people. There are several ways of improving the income of the people there, but I don't think fishing is going to be a cheaper alternative. I think we have a cheaper alternative by looking at improving Lake Victoria.
Thank you, and also thank you for reminding me of that fable story. Actually, you've also answered the second part of the question that I was going to ask about how the community can benefit to have some economic activity introduced around the lake that's viable, scalable, and can be monetized to benefit them. So thank you for answering the two questions at the same time. Now let's move forward. We want to go to your specialty now, which is the quality of water. And we are now going to talk about Lake Victoria, talking about lakes and how they can sustain livelihoods. Lake Victoria, just like a stone throw away from your home village, continue to be choked by water hyacinth for many years now, resulting in significant decrease in fish existence that deprives millions of fishmongers' livelihoods. Aside from government interventions that has proved very slow, painful, and ineffective, what else can be done to achieve a lasting solution to this menace and restore its lost glory?
I can begin by saying that Lake Victoria is a well-fed lake. We have overfed it with our pollutants. The pollutants include the rich, fertile soils with chemicals and pesticides in it, coming from agricultural land through the rivers into the lake. And the siltation has increased the feeding of the lake through slow release of the content of the soils that it is brought into it. That's the first instance. Secondly, defecation and uncontrolled sewer treatments are examples of the well-feeding of the lake. Let me give an example here of Homa Bay town. There was a project to build a sewer treatment in Homa Bay, in the 80s. And they chose the wrong technology. They chose the aeration technology instead of the slow digestion like in Nyalenda in Kisumu, which destroys the nutrient and purifies the water. If you look at Homa Bay, it is choking with water hyacinth. That's a direct feeding of human waste into the lake, which has brought the fertility in the bay high, and hence the thriving of water hyacinth. In addition to that, we now add the industries that are also spilling their waste without any treatment into the lake. And again, we are increasing the fertility or infertility because some chemicals will kill the natural biological inhabitants of the lake. So we are the source of why water hyacinth is thriving in Lake Victoria. If we can just move as a community village of all the people around Lake Victoria, all the Kenyans, the Tanzanians, the Ugandans, the Rwandese, the Burundians, and clean our system so that we can restore water quality in the lake to its original status. We will see the water hyacinth dwindling away and dying, and we will restore the life of Lake Victoria. Certainly, this is not a task which can be done by a community. It is not a task that needs to be done by a country. It's a task which needs to be done through a regional cooperation. We need the regional cooperation with a determination to restore the quality of water in Lake Victoria. And if we do that, we'll find we have a solution to the water hyacinth. And the quality of life will improve, the economic activities around the lake will improve, etc., etc. So it is an investment which is worth taking, but it cannot be done by one country alone.
Thank you for comprehensively answering that. And now that you're officially retired from your colorful and fulfilling career, you must be having a lot of time to reflect on your journey that was. What is it that you regret not doing at all, or enough that you wish should have been done better?
Thank you, Elvis. I have no regrets in life. I think God has blessed me, and I've lived a useful life. I've done my best, and the rest I leave to my students and colleagues to take over. I will continue to reflect on my path of retirement. When I retired immediately, I was diagnosed with a prostate cancer, and I have been undergoing treatment. And I'm still under treatment. I'm improving. I'm seeing my health improving. And therefore, I've restricted my activities to the few things that I find of interest. But right now, I'm hoping that those activities that I will take will be the activities that provide greater satisfaction to me and to the community I serve.
Yes, sorry to hear about that, about your health. We wish you all the best. We wish you good health and stay safe. That one also answers what I was going to ask you the last question, how you spent your time during retirement, and is what is next for Professor Emeritus Wandiga.
I'm not under the title of Professor Emeritus. It has not been given to me, so I don't call myself a Professor Emeritus. I call myself Professor only. In the meantime, if the challenge is given to me, I think my mind is still clear and resourceful. I will be able to generate new ideas to help me and the society. Particularly now that I'm not teaching, but I'm still interacting with the students. I will be grateful to continue helping the students as much as I can.
Thank you so much, Professor Shem Oyoo Wandiga. Thank you so much for your time. We wish you all the best with your plans. And thank you, Africa, for watching. This has been a great show. We'll also be having the write-up of this discussion on our website tomorrow. And also the full interview will also be uploaded there. Thank you so much and have a good and productive week ahead. Thank you, Professor. Kwaheri, Africa.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, Elvis. May God bless you and continue to educating us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.